Welcome, I'm Suzanne Dietsch, and I love fussing over tiny shells and sea life to create Sailor Valentine Mosaic shell art. We live in what is affectionately known as flyover country. Far from the beaches of Florida, on an island of trees surrounded by oceans of farm fields. With my husband, we enjoy sharing the changing seasons with family and grandchildren on this 22 acres of paradise. This is my happy place to balance the overwhelming stresses and many family health challenges. Some read, do puzzles, and some are lucky enough to walk the beaches. And much to the skepticism of my family, I choose to fuss over the treasures from the ocean. For me, it began in 2006. While reading about a sailor's life, I came across the description of a curious little treasure, a sailor's valentine. My first entry was titled Chocolate Wave. It was a 10-inch valentine placed right next to a grand valentine by David Rhine at a Sarasota shell show. It was easy to see there was much more for me to learn. Other than knowing the basics, clamshells, conchs, and scallops, I was referring to tiny shells as bits of food, such as sweet corn, peas, rice, M&Ms, macaroni, or lemon drops. I forged on with the help of shell shows, club meetings, and using the internet for research. It's turning into a never-ending adventure of constant learning. The Chocolate Wave is still one of my favorite valentines. There is no right or wrong place to start. Just step in and go for it. This traditionally styled valentine is titled Ocean Rainbows. It dictates the use of techniques used in the 1800s. Barbados is the home for these souvenir valentines, which were purchased by sailors upon their return trips home. Traditional valentines use simple geometric patterns with paper dividers and cotton filler, all in an octagon frame. The divided sections were then filled with locally collected shells. The center section most often contained a harder rose. My piece included all natural shells, but they did not all come from the Caribbean, so it is referred to as created in the traditional style. For those fortunate to walk the beaches and pick up all kinds of odd treasures, this is the valentine for you. I used all types of bits and pieces. To create art using all self-collected items is an adventurous undertaking, but will easily create a one-of-a-kind treasure. If fossil collecting is your thing, this is for you. It's created from a collection of undocumented tiny fossils, where I used everything from baby shark's teeth to at least 21 fossils I could identify, with still more needing to be named. I believe this is a better way to display a collection rather than hiding them in closet shoeboxes, in my humble opinion. Valentines do not always include shell flowers, but floral patterns are definitely a favorite today. For centuries, the Europeans created shell floral arrangements placed in octagon frames or under domed glass cloches. To create a show-stopping valentine today, a single basket of flowers or a design with 1,000 tiny flowers will always be a winner. Even though the flowers are beautiful, it's always nice to add a bit of life to any design. Here I added a little ladybug made from a crab eye. I remember asking Bill Jordan if crab eyes actually came from live crabs. He was always very patient with me and yet a mentor to many of us. His encouragement to continue this art form and keep it alive for future generations was relentless. Please remember to always sign your work. It's important. There are many ways to do this. My work is signed with brass plates. I know one artist that hides a tiny seahorse somewhere in all her designs. Just remember, sign your work. The history of specimen collecting and use of shells in art is truly endless. Thankfully, today the internet connects us all to this world of information. These are my favorite books regarding sailors' valentine art. Now begins the fun, gathering shells to fit a theme. Whether shells are bought from a specimen dealer, a shell show vendor, souvenir shop, traded with friends, or bought off the internet. They all need to be cleaned, sorted, and sized. This is time-consuming, but time very well spent. That's just the way it is. Clean, sort, size, again and again. Sometimes I am lucky enough to purchase a treasured collection of dyed shells and patterns originally of the 1940s at an estate sale. My shell room is always in a state of constant chaos. Hundreds of recycled jars, the 60-drawer filing cabinet, lazy Susans, and shelf after shelf stacked with totes. Tools, tools, tools. Here are some of my favorites, but I have many more. My workspace is wherever I land, the kitchen or dining room table, the utility room, or outside on the deck. Shell art is basically everywhere. I start by choosing a gorgeous frame. All artists have their favorites. I prefer top-loading frames with generous inside working spaces. Frames of many beautiful woods are available. The 8-sided octagon frame is the typical frame used for Valentines. However, other shapes have been used throughout history, even 12-sided frames. All frames need glass fronts to protect the delicate shell work. So much time is spent to create a beautiful Valentine that a strong frame is just as important as the work inside. Next, I would find inspiration for a design. This is a drawing by Ernst Haeckel of a basket star. My research then revealed there to be over 2,000 different varieties of sea stars to choose from. I may start by designing on paper, but as the process continues, that design is always adjusted over and over. Measuring, remeasuring, checking perspective, color choices, and even collecting comments from family members. It's all included in the process known as changing with the flow of happy accidents. Of course, the center of my Valentine would be a basket sea star. I chose contrasting colors for the background to highlight the star. It included mussels, sea glass, blue coral beads, apple blossoms, and thousands of tiny mussel pairs standing on end. I chose sliced shells for the tips of the arms. I fattened the wire arms with clay and eventually covered the arms with crushed pink shells. Once the background was fixed to the frame, I started adding as many sea stars as I could. Stars on top of stars, twinkling stars, feather sea stars, and brittle sea stars, to name just a few. And even stars went up the sides of the frame. Here again is a drawing by Ernst Haeckel, and this was my interpretation. The basket sea star was resting atop a sea urchin to add that 3D effect. I've entered shell shows, and sometimes I do well. Sometimes my Valentines miss the approval of judges. But for me, it's truly the opportunity to share ideas, meet with friends, and enjoy the many different projects created. Everyone has an artistic point of view. I am very pleased to have been awarded 2 People's Choice Awards so far. In honor of Bill Jordan, I do share and help answer questions as best I can. I teach Sailor's Valentine classes in Nantucket for the Nantucket Historical Association, and I also hold classes sponsored by the Sarasota Shell Club Artisans Group. I have taught youth classes where I might add they work very fast and have great imaginations. This class of 9 plus 1 assistant finished 9 Valentines in 3 hours. My granddaughter, at the age of 4, also wanted to get in on the act, so by the age 5, she had entered and received first place ribbons at the Philadelphia, Sarasota, and Sanibel shell shows. Today I'm working on an 18-inch Valentine. Valentines this size take oftentimes months to finish, but the workspace is still always the same. Lots of glasses, good lighting, and many tools to choose from. I have chosen to start with a beautiful frame that has ships engraved on each of the 8 sides. The theme of this Valentine will be using traditional elements as well as combining it with a contemporary twist. I use a Lazy Susan to rotate my piece as I work on it. It gives me the opportunity to check my work from every angle. The blue tape marks the top of my Valentine case. Most of the center has been fixed into the case along with the shell divided sections. As you can see, most of the other shells are loose at this point. It's because I'm working on color choices today. I usually stick to 3 colors. There are artists who create Valentines using every color in the rainbow, but I choose to stick within the 3. The traditional elements include a rose, a heart, an anchor, and the surrounding circle will reflect a compass, north, south, east, and west. And as always, I like to add a critter to my work, so I have created a Kraken. This octopus is commonly known as a wonderpuss. It's a reminder of all the sailor stories encountering giant creatures. The coloring is created with sand, and I still need to attach a few more suckers, but it will fit into my piece just about like this. Then of course you have to add the flowers and all the little extra bling. It's in my opinion that anything from the sea can be used in a Valentine, whether it's sand, pearls, shell beads, or dried critters. Some artists insist only natural shells can be used, but history tells us that there is a whole category of shell work that includes found objects, such as postcards, photographs, and dried critters. Dyed shells are also popular today. This technique of brightly colored shells began during the 1940s with the construction of shell jewelry. And then there are those who like to go one step further and add a little bling like rhinestones. Whatever makes you happy is truly the way to go. I've enjoyed spending this time with you, and I'd like to extend a special thank you to the Sanibel crew for creating their first virtual shell show. For me, it's time to call it a day and head outside for a nature walk.